Meher, your host for today, along with Richa Patel.
Hi everyone.
Hi, we're going to be speaking to you today. Hope all our listeners, their family, friends, colleagues, their acquaintances, everyone is safe. We're thinking about you. We've also been seeing a lot of community support over the last few months within the various ultimate circles related to COVID, and it's really awesome to see it happening. A lot of fundraisers, even vaccine camps, and people coming forward for blood donations. We just wanted to put it out there that any of these initiatives require publicity within the ultimate circle and you think that we can help, let us know and we would be happy to use this forum for any COVID related support. And with that, today we're starting something very exciting, something Jaideep, Richa and I have been thinking about for a long time, which is we wanted to do a gender series within the Ultimate Frisbee podcast. I can tell you why I wanted to do this, then maybe Richa can share her thoughts. I've been playing sports since I was very young. It started with playing in my colony park. That was all the colony kids would come together and we'd kick a ball or would run around each other and ice water and all that kind of thing. And it was completely, of course, mixed gender at that point in time, or boys and girls playing together of all ages. That was as a child informally. And then when I picked up sport in school, and then later in college, as soon as I entered this institutional atmosphere, suddenly I was only playing single gender. So that entering school and entering an institution specialized my gender experience within sport, and men played with men, women played with women, and God forbid you didn't identify, then you didn't play, or you played with somewhere and didn't know what to do with it. Then the first time I actually in the organized sporting community that I got the exposure of mixed gendered was of course ultimate, and that was later in college, and I saw that there was scope within this organized sporting for a mixed gendered community. And then after playing the sport, I came to believe that this is how I wanted to play. I always feel that the playground is in a sense a snapshot of the real world. So what happens in the world outside shows up in the playground, and I feel that ultimate already has so many tools within the sport that allows you to kind of break down things like gender conflict, and it has it built in by being a mixed gendered sport, by having the concept of spirit, by being self-refereed. And I'd love to speak about gender within the context of ultimate because these tools exist. That's why I wanted to do this. Richa, what about you?
We had you, Jaideep, and I had this discussion when we went into this conversation. We were seeing that the presentation by Zara Kadu, who talked at a recent Ultimate Athlete project, something that she says in the introduction is that there's been a lot of talk and there's been a lot of discussion around gender and gender equity in Ultimate lately. And just having the label of mixed gender, you can seem, or somebody from the outside coming into the ultimate world can think that, oh, ultimate is conducive for different gender, or at least the binary gender. But do we really know how to talk about it? Are we really in absolute terms gender equitable as a sport? Are we inclusive? There's a lot of open-ended questions. And in my own personal experiences with having spoken to team members and having spoken to people within the Indian ultimate community about the topic of gender and where discrimination really comes in, there is a lot of defensiveness. There's a lot of things there is a lot of room for improvement we still hold. And I essentially want to be able to play a part where there is improvement. We have a lot of room and we can definitely do a lot of things to change. And that's where I'm coming from when I want to put together the content or the information on this gender series, that how can the community as a whole work towards improving, reflecting, and in a way bursting their bubbles that we're not all holier than thou, we're not all just because we play Ultimate, which is a mixed gender sport, doing our bit for being inclusive or in any way being gender neutral, gender inclusive in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Yeah, like I said, like I always imagine the field to be a snapshot of life. So whatever conflict exists in my work and my family space, gender shows up on the field and it shows up in little ways. And yeah, so today's episode, we're going to start off with introducing gender and discussing what it means with gender within sport. And so we have two very special guests.
Yeah. And before we start, we all like to, just a disclaimer, this episode is being put together an information sharing and we're open to exchange. We might not have everything pat down right. And we acknowledge the fact that we're learning from this process and there's a lot of unlearning to be done through this process as well. And I'm very happy and glad to have Rasika and Aditya. These are two really young, bright, women. Sorry, I should not say women, I've used the gender, but so used to it. But yeah, two people whom we have as part of the podcast today. They are currently leading the People's Ultimate League, which is a great initiative within Ultimate Frisbee to kind of extend the sport to people beyond the binary gender and people who are traditionally not encouraged to explore sports and the sporting arena. So welcome Rasika and Aditya to the podcast.
Hi, Rasika.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Aditya.
Hello, both of you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for joining us. If I can, introduce Rasika and Aditya. So, Rasika, Aditya, and in fact, even Meher, all of them come from Ashoka University. I feel
We've overpowered you on this podcast.
Yeah. We wonder if Jaideep was on this call, it would have been Ashoka Mafia then.
Yeah, that's true. But we don't need any more cis men on this call. I'm actually very happy that we don't have Jaideep and there's only the four of us. But yeah, so Rasika is an alumnus from the Ashoka University. She is very soon going to be starting her master's course in international human rights this September onwards. And that means that she's not going to be playing in India. Is the master's course outside of India, Rasika?
Yeah, it is. It's in Denver, Colorado, in the United States.
Oh,
Lovely.
nice. I hope you get to
Wow.
play some Ultimate there.
Oh, they do have an ultimate team. It's called Hype, and I'm very hyped too.
That's awesome. And ironic enough that you supposedly like you have heard about or you picked up Ultimate in Delhi while in college and you never picked it up in Chennai, which actually I find surprising because Chennai is one of the biggest hubs of Ultimate, but nevertheless you picked it up and that's good for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you are passionate about gender justice and you hope and you wish to apply your field of study to Ultimate, and that's great. The more we have informative or learned people, that the more we'll be able to kind of educate ourselves and do better at systemic level changes. So that's really great.
Go Rasika.
Yeah, good luck for your masters.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Aditya goes by Dawn, which is, I actually don't know why you go by Dawn, Aditya. Why do you go by Dawn?
It's just a tongue twister for most people. Also, if someone were to call out Aditya, go for the disc, they'll either call me by some other name, and if there's an Aditya on the team, they'll get confused. And yeah, there's just for ease.
It's her surname.
Yeah, it's your surname. Aditya is a batchmate of Rasika and also the teammate. Rasika played for Hammerheads. Aditya is currently playing for the West Coast Rascals, which is a team based out of Mumbai, and that's because she's also supposedly working out of Mumbai right now in Calcutta because she's originally from there. But the pandemic has had all of us go back to our hometowns. Yeah, she's works out of Mumbai as an investment analyst. And when she's not number crunching, she's also leading the development committee of UPAI. She is passionate about women in leadership and sports as a tool for bringing about change in the society that we live in. So, yeah, both of you, your passion is very strongly rooted in gender and gender justice. And we're hoping to have a great conversation with you ahead.
Likewise, Richa.
I've been in college the same time they were in college, and they've always been very strong voices. And it's so amazing that, like, 3 years since I graduated, we are meeting on a podcast on gender. And before we, really get into gender within Ultimate, there's a very basic ask of you, which is, can you break down what this term gender means?
Meher, I think that's a super important question to address at the beginning, because many a times sex and gender are used interchangeably and when done so loosely, but they couldn't be far apart. And to define it, sex refers to the biological aspects of an individual, which are usually assigned at birth, and they're generally either male or female. In comparison, gender is something which is related to a person's behavior attributes based on what is very personal to them. So it's an internal perception of oneself, and I feel it's truly a way of expressing who you are intrinsically. Assigned female at birth myself, I do identify as a woman.
And just adding on to what Advitya just shared with us, I also think that the idea of gender is a very fluid one. And what that means is two things. Not only does it not have any categories, you don't have to be a certain gender. Your sense of gender identity can also fluctuate throughout your life. Like, for example, if you thought this is a certain gender that you identified with, that doesn't have to remain for the rest of your life. You could go through certain experiences, be introduced to certain concepts, as you all are through this podcast, and you could realize that your your sense of gender is a lot more expansive than what you thought it to be.
Great that you pointed out that there is a fluidity, there is a certain sense of exploration, there's a certain sense of who you are, and it's personal to them. And talking about how language can be as a tool to be gender neutral, or there is a lot of, like, in recent years, pronouns has become big, where they has been used, can be used now as a singular noun. And even there is women, which is spelled replaces a with an x. There's a lot of language that is being created and developed around how one can be, or even organizations can be more gender neutral. What do you think, and can you share a bit about how language can be a tool for being gender neutral and gender inclusive?
Definitely. That's a great question. I do believe that language really does shape the way we learn and the way we define the terms around us, because that is the way we come to understand our concept. To take an example, I would just like to define a certain term. This term, it's called cisgendered. And what that means is that when your gender identity aligns with the sex which you were assigned at birth. For example, if you were assigned the sex of female and if you identify as a woman, then you would be termed a cisgendered individual, as opposed to, say, a transgender individual or someone who identifies as non-binary, etc., etc. And so I think that once we limit ourselves to this binary idea of gender, that is either a man or a woman, we fail to see what's beyond the binary, and we fail to recognize other identities such as transgender, trans man, trans woman, non-binary, gender fluid, and there are just many, many more identities which one could identify as. And just a personal anecdote, I myself identify as non-binary. I've felt quite comfortable with this term for myself once I was introduced to such concepts. Richa, taking the example that you just spoke about, the word WOMXN, initially it was thought to be a way in which we can be more inclusive and a way in which we can refer to not just cis women, but anyone who considers themselves a woman or anyone who considers themselves feminine in some ways. And it was also thought to be a way to remove the word men from women, and so a way of dissociating ourselves from the whole idea of patriarchy. But there's also been a lot of opposition within the community about using this word, because a lot of people who identify as trans women are seen by others as not being real women, in quotes. And so there's this certain standard, or there's this certain prototype which you have to fulfill in order to be considered a real woman, in quotes. which I think is completely unacceptable. Like, I really feel like if you feel you're a certain identity, then that is what you are, and you are free to call yourself whatever you like. The reason why this term is a little controversial is because it was supposed to separate the real women from the women who are not so real, which is why personally within our People's Ultimate League we try not to use this word, because we know that it might offend the sentiments of a certain community. The idea of language, yeah, it might be tricky, but I mean, if I were to offer a sort of conclusion, I would say don't use a blanket term for anyone. If you want to know what they would like to be called, just simply ask them, or simply reach out to them and tell them that you want what is best for them. You're keeping their interests in mind, and you can call them whatever feels comfortable to them. And similarly, the pronouns part, I wanted to say that I have heard of a lot of pronouns being used. I have friends who use pronouns which are not binary. And I think this is very important to keep in mind, just the pronouns that someone uses. And it's always important to ask someone their pronouns,
Yeah.
just how you ask them their name as well.
So, Rasika, what are your pronouns? Mine are she and her. This is for you and for the audience.
Right. So I also go by the pronouns she and her.
Oh, okay, great. What about the Richa, Dawn?
I go by she, her as well.
I go with she and her.
Okay.
At this point, it's important to double down on what Rafika said, that it's really important to ask. Instead of assuming, just ask. That's the best and safest way of ensuring that you're not excluding someone, and also you're being respectful and giving the opportunity for the person in front of you to be able to share.
Absolutely, Richa. I completely agree that, the onus should not be on the LGBTQ plus community to be, to come ahead and speak and voice they're comfortable being addressed as, etc. It's easier when you're made to feel included, when you're asked that question. So it's a step in the right direction, and it's definitely important to be mindful of this. In the context of Ultimate Frisbee also, I've personally seen how language is so contested, and, the words that sometimes use very loosely. And also, we've probably been hearing that, and that's how we've sort of internalized use of a lot of gendered words. Simple things that you hear around you while on the field, off the field as well, when you're discussing strategies or roles for people on your team. Man marking, 3-man drill is very common. You switch from offense to defense, like pick your man. It's just something that after a certain point, it used to stand out to me, and it felt like, why are we okay with just internalizing that? Are we questioning it? And is there a need to question it? There is no right or wrong answer to that. It's just how you have your own journey with understanding why it's important to move beyond what you've always been saying and doing or accepting.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own journey. And I think that's also very important, that you shouldn't be doing something just because everyone around you is also doing it.
Yeah.
Understand by yourself why it's important as a community, as a sport that says it is inclusive. Are we doing our bit to extend that truly, and not just on paper or in terms of our ratio of mixed gender? Taking this, beyond just language, but also I've seen, and this is definitely to some extent physiological, that matchups, when we talk about matchups on a team, or when you're sort of figuring out matchups with your opponent, you're sort of matching up with someone who you assume will be having similar traits as you do.
Yeah.
And men end up marking men and women end up marking women.
Yeah.
And there again, we sort of see a divide.
Yeah.
Why do that? You should always, as athletes, try to push your boundaries. And what are your boundaries, only you can define. But no one's putting you in an uncomfortable position or in a situation where it will be detrimental for your team's performance.
Absolutely.
But these are important things to think about.
Dawn, you also brought up a very interesting point on matchup being based on physical attributes. The matchup should be on who you think you can compete with on the field.
Yeah, and our perception of their ability, isn't that also putting a judgment?
Yeah, absolutely.
You perceive someone's ability to run at a certain speed, or their height determines how fast they can run or how much ground they can cover.
Just adding that this raises such an important question when it comes to sports specifically, because, Rasika and you both spoke about gender fluidity and deconstructed this rigidity of gender. But as soon as we come back to physical attributes, especially within the sporting world, we come back to this binary gender, a fixed male, a fixed female prototype. And there's often conflict even at the world stage. As soon as someone's physicality kind of doesn't fit the norm, and then they're kind of excluded from the specified female or male category. So, for instance, the International Association for Athletics Federation, it recognizes female athletes who have differences of sexual development as legally female. But as soon as it comes to competition, they consider them biologically male. So they're not allowed to compete. We just like to, also hear your thoughts on this, both yours and Rasika's thoughts on what do you think about this conundrum?
I do think that this is a sort of tricky topic. So I think sport in general has always been viewed as more competitive than recreational. And so when we talk about a competitive space, we also have to talk about how we can make it as fair as possible for all players. I think the dilemma arises when we talk about how we're able to make things fair while also trying to expand our categories beyond just the binary. For
Yeah.
example, a lot of studies have ruled that one factor which really boosts a person's performance, like an athlete's performance, is the amount of testosterone that is present in their body. And now, if there are certain players who do take hormone replacement therapy for any sort of reason, for personal reasons, for reasons which are related to their identity, then this is going to complicate how they're viewed in the sporting field, because immediately they're going to be viewed just as athletes, they're also going to be viewed as someone who is, say, rupturing the balance of the already fair, in quotes, playing field. Taking an example, so the example which I'm going to go with is an athlete called Caster Semenya, who is a South African Olympic athlete. There was a ruling which said that she had too much testosterone, in quotes, to be able to compete in her category. And a certain court ruled that now she had to take certain hormone suppressants in order to medically and biologically alter her body. And there was a lot of debate about this, saying, is this fair? The thing is, most of the debate is only about whether is this fair to other players, right? In my opinion, I think there also has to be a little bit more focus on whether what we're asking from athletes who are non-binary is that fair. Because
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever been fair for the transgender community, for non-binary athletes, to be able to compete on par with cisgender athletes simply because of all the barriers that they've faced, both socially and as well as just in terms of feeling ostracized from the people around us. One sort of this is not, of course, a solution, because there are a lot of things that needs to be thought about. In my opinion, one thing which can happen is that there can be a lot of dialogue between people who we think we are very different from or very estranged from. I think that truly, if sporting bodies such as IAFF or WFDF have the interests of the transgender community in mind, I don't
Yeah.
think it's such a hard ask to say reach out to someone from the community and maybe ask them to be involved in this process of setting up policies. So I think one thing we can think about is just encouraging more dialogue between official sporting bodies as well as the transgender community or players who have just been denied fair or equal sporting opportunity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just I think this is a great segue for us to be able to talk about People's Ultimate League, because the whole idea and the intention is to be able to introduce the sport of ultimate frisbee to the people who are traditionally been discouraged from sport. And Rasika and Aditya, could you both tell us a little bit about why PUL and a little bit about what are the current updates from PUL and what can we expect going forward?
Yeah. And even before that, what is PUL? Tell us a little bit about.
Like Richa touched upon earlier as well, PUL, or People's Ultimate League, is aimed at persons who have been traditionally discouraged from sports. So it's based on ultimate frisbee. It derives its unique selling point from the fact that ultimate is a mixed gendered, self-refereed, and low contact. Sport in India and traditionally around the world has always been driven by patriarchal norms, and tends to be inaccessible to a lot of people who don't possess the so-called male sporting traits. It honestly depends on the kind of community or the society you sort of grow up in. To be very honest, when I moved to Ashoka, and so that's the first time I was introduced to Ultimate. And having played a bunch of sports through my childhood, nothing really stuck as much as Ultimate did. It felt like, and something that Meher mentioned earlier, that sport and its ability to feel like, how life is in general, which is mixed gender, a sport that represents that reality of life can really, that stuck with me. So I think PUL wishes to dissociate the culture of sports from a single gender and reintroduce it to individuals who've been denied this equal sporting opportunity. So the process that PUL is following is that we are collaborating with NGOs, collectives across India to introduce the sport to LGBTQ plus communities, hoping that through these NGOs and through these established organizations who have been working with individuals from such communities, we are able to create a safe space for them to play and play as the gender that they're most comfortable with. Coming back to just in general contextualizing why PUL is important in the context of Frisbee, also where we are at right now with Ultimate Frisbee and it being mixed gendered. We talk about the sport being inclusive, but that inclusiveness stops at just including both men and women. But the world as we know of it and gender as we know of it goes way, way beyond that. And we've touched upon that earlier as well. I personally, when I started playing Frisbee and Rasika also started playing around the same time, the ratio that we started playing Frisbee with was 4:3, and it was like 4 men, 3 women, or the other way around. I'm sure Ultimate has evolved from 2:5 or any other ratio where, and has come a long way. We've come a long way in it being mandatory to have both, equal representation from both genders to be able to field a team. Even though there have been, some instances where teams haven't been able to go to a tournament because we didn't have enough women, I think those things are changing. It's not, there is a lot of increase in voluntary participation from women, as opposed to, getting brownie points for bringing a female friend to play Frisbee or join a team. So I think that notion really needs to go. And having mixed gender and going beyond that allows genders to communicate, cooperate with each other, and also make it a more inclusive space. So I think PUL sort of grew from that. Rasika, do you want to chip in? And then maybe we can talk more specifics about where we are at with PUL.
Yeah, sure. So with regards to the origins of PUL, or rather the concept of PUL, I think it all started when I was working with UPAI and I was working on creating an LGBTQ plus policy on how to be more inclusive and how to be more receptive towards such players. And I realized that what we were trying to do is we were trying to expand the binary system that we already have. And while we are able to do that in terms of, say, asking people their pronouns, or in terms of having certain policies for those who have, say, excess or low amounts of hormone levels, I realized that we were sort of only working within the binary, which the binary system which we have. And instead, we could probably envision a league which doesn't even know what this binary is in the first place. Like, that's not where we need to start. Rather, we can start with the concept of just introducing the sport of ultimate frisbee to people. That's why the word people in People's Ultimate League. We want every player to feel they're a person or feel like they are people instead of, say, putting them in certain specific boxes. And so I just thought the idea of introducing this sport, which has so much potential to bring communities together, to a community which has already been denied such access, I thought that would be a great place to start to just rid ourselves of the whole idea of the binary.
Can you folks possibly share a little bit about which are the NGO partners and who are the people behind the People's Ultimate League?
Sure. People's Ultimate League is being supported by, called the Onsite Fund, by an organization called Women Win. It's an organization passionate about democratizing philanthropy, and supporting women and non-binary people from underrepresented communities. I think through our interactions with individuals from Women Win, we find their approach to grant giving, grant making very inclusive, because given how COVID sort of hit us, and everyone's in a lockdown situation, not a lot is happening on ground. They've been very open to adjusting the use of the funds. Just to give everyone some context, the grant will be for the coaches from the Indian Ultimate community who will be going into NGOs that we have sort of been speaking to, and will be directly training some of the communities that we just spoke about. They've been very open to adjusting the funds and how we're using it, and just the timing on that. And they've been super supportive in providing resources as well to help us through this time. I think from a grant making point of view, why Women Win stands out is also because in their grant making process, they also include people from underrepresented backgrounds. So it's not just people who've had a lot of privilege in their life who are taking decisions about who should get a grant for a particular project. It's people like you and me who are passionate about projects like People's Ultimate Lead, who are able to also take decisions for furthering such ideas and taking those ahead. Apart from obviously Women Win and the On-Site Fund, we've been talking to a bunch of different NGOs, collectives. To mention a few, we're in advanced discussions with our Aravani Art Project, Basera, NAS Foundation, and Queerbotor. We are working with them to introduce Ultimate Frisbee in their communities in 2021. And like I mentioned earlier, UPAI will be providing certified coaches to train individuals across Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Coimbatore, and Mumbai. We have introduced PUL to the Indian Ultimate community before, but in case you're listening to this and you want to definitely be a coach and be on board with what the league is doing, so you can always hit us up.
People have to reach out to either you or Rasika in case if they want to participate, correct?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. You can reach out to the operations team at UPAI as well.
Okay, awesome. And Rasika, you did mention slightly earlier in the podcast that you identify yourself as non-binary. And in the context of an Ultimate Frisbee, could you share your experience of how you were able to either communicate and, how you were able to navigate the world of Ultimate Frisbee with this kind of new gender identity for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I started identifying as non-binary about 2 years ago, which was when I was still actively playing with my college ultimate team, Ashoka Hammerheads. And strangely enough, I know that the idea of mixed gender ultimate appealed to me, but I actually felt a lot more at home when I was playing in the single gender regionals in 2019. So the reason for that was every time I played with a mixed gender team, I was also very aware of the fact that the concept of ratios, as Aditya touched upon earlier, that is something that very actively divides us. It either puts you in the male category or the female category. And I was very aware of the fact that I was put into a category which I did not really identify with. When it came to the single gender regionals, I was aware that I was participating under the women's category, but it didn't feel as isolating as it did in a mixed gender tournament, because when I was playing with my teammates in the single gender regionals, there was no ratio, there was no division of male and female, especially while being online. And so it sort of just felt like we were 7 people playing together, playing against 7 other people. So I really did feel a lot more at home when I was playing the single gender regionals. There is a lot of scope to just increase our terminology to begin with. I know that single gender regionals is classified into women's as well as opens, and I really like the idea of a category being called open instead of being called a certain gender.
Absolutely with you on board that, we can definitely do better when it comes to using terminologies that are more inclusive.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing your personal experience with us.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. And it's very, very interesting point you brought up about how it feels playing single gender. Just specifically the ratio and how it affects one's I feel like I've felt some of this, with the ratio being called
Right.
in a tournament as opposed to no ratio being called. It's a very nice point you brought up, and it's making me think. So thanks. And even earlier when Advita spoke about a 2:5 potentially turning into now a 3:4 equal 4:3. Thanks for that. So now we're at a point where we kind of want to take away something that we can kind of record from this episode and say that what if we could list 3 gender inclusive practices that we could continue, discontinue, and start in Ultimate.
Right. That's a great question. I think one thing that we could start doing is to just familiarize ourselves with the idea of pronouns and just educate our ultimate community on why we need to ask each other pronouns and why it's important. I think it's also quite relatively easier to implement because I know that when teams are playing against each other, we sort of stand in a circle and we introduce ourselves to each other. And while we're saying our name in the same sentence, we can also introduce ourselves with our pronouns. So that's definitely something I think teams can start doing.
Yep. It's easy to execute even.
Yeah, exactly. And one more suggestion which I had, a practice which we can continue to do. So I was doing an internship with an organization called Playquity, which is based in Chennai, and they had actually done a very interesting study in collaboration with both UPAI as well as few Ashokan students. And this study sought to capture the gender gap within Ultimate in India. And actually, this was one of the few studies which I read both about Ultimate and about the Ultimate situation in India. And I would really like to read a lot more studies just trying to capture what gender is and how gender looks like in Ultimate. So I do think maybe we could invest in sort of a research wing or a research fund where we could have certain people take on the initiative and perform a few studies or simply just assess attitudes about what gender means to people in Ultimate. I think that not only studying but also publishing these studies to the community will really help us educate ourselves on this.
Absolutely, and maybe you'd be happy to know that we plan to interview in as part of the series some of the people who have done such studies on touches,
Oh, right.
etc.
Right.
To kind of, because when we speak about a gender gap, I mean, at least in a mixed gendered female male setup, when we say there's a difference, what do we mean by that difference? We haven't. How do we quantify that difference? And studies can really be so enlightening, where you think that everything is equal, really,
Right.
and then you look at the stats and you're like, no. Yeah. Hopefully we'll have that also happen on an episode soon. So thanks for that suggestion. I think it's really important.
And what shall we discontinue?
In terms of the entire conversation that we had, and hopefully everyone is slightly more educated than they were on this topic, before, take a conscious decision about discontinuing usage of certain gendered words. There's no point anyone listing it out for you. Whatever you feel that you could bring about a change in making the space you occupy more inclusive, make sure you do that and do it in your own way. So maybe discontinue using some of those words. To just in terms of bringing us back to people's ultimate lead, we have high hopes and expectations from what we want to achieve from this lead. It's not always so much about making the space more inclusive for people from these communities playing in a safe space for themselves. I think a long shot and an aspiration for the sport, and at least how I perceive of it, should be not having separate spaces occupied by men, women, and mixed gender as we know of Ultimate now, and separate safe spaces for people from communities who have been traditionally discouraged from sport. We need to be able to bring those two together at some point in time. And the PUL is just baby steps in that direction.
Yep, good luck for that. I definitely wish and call out for people within the community to to help as much as possible, even if not just as coaching, but try and spread the word about PUL, try and talk to more people. If people know of communities that are traditionally discouraged and would like to learn the sport, they could even reach out to the PUL team. So yeah, there's a lot to be done, and yeah, like Advitya said, it's the first baby steps that we can start with PUL.
Just going back to conversations with different NGO partners, communities, was truly an eye opener for me. People from different parts of the country had their own lived experiences with working with transgender communities. One of these interactions has stayed with me because of a certain something that they said. And so we as People's Ultimately, we were talking to them about the benefit of just having sport in your life. It's not even sport, just some kind of physical activity, be it throwing around a disc, etc. And this conversation we were having 6 to 9 months ago in a peak lockdown. A lot of these NGOs were also working to provide livelihoods to people from these communities.
Mm-hmm.
They were working really hard to ensure that they had some sort of job or even basic supplies to sustain themselves. One of these NGOs straight up told us that, hey, is the sport going to be able to provide a livelihood for these people? And we didn't have an answer to that. We were just assuming that these communities would be okay with trying something new. But sport is also something we play or we are able to enjoy because we're privileged that all our other needs are met with.
Correct.
That was an eye opener for me, that their sport isn't the solution to everything. So, I mean, it does put us in a position of privilege that we're able to use it as a place where, to enjoy or to, take a break from stuff. Yeah.
I feel like, we've covered a world in this episode, really. We've done a whole definition of gender. You've broken down gender for us. We've spoken about sports and gender and how that plays out. You've really given us a detail into People's Ultimate League, how it started, the content of like many episodes. So thank you so much for being here with us and taking us through all this. And like Richa said in the beginning, it's really a learning and unlearning period. And you all have led us into it. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
With that, I think we're ready to close this episode.
Yep, and say our goodbyes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rasika and Advitya, for joining.
Thank you, Meher. Thank you, Richa. I think thanks for starting the conversation on this topic. Couldn't have been a better time.
All right.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening.
You can reach out to us at
contact@91ultimate.com.
Yeah, that's what you can reach out to us at. Okay. All right. For anything you feel about the episode, any comments, feedback, suggestions, and we're listening and we're open to anything you have to say. We're also learning. So, all right. Bye. Goodbye until next time.